Hi, friends. It's Sarah, and this is an episode I'm calling Putting Down Coping Mechanisms That No Longer Serve You. So, this is I would call it a soul tuning kind of episode in that it's for intentionally growing your soul. And that is by doing real work that will advance you on this path and like kind of identifying the muscle that needs work. This is a weird episode in that it is um, really aimed at allowing you to live on a different plane as an energetic being. It's like if there is such a thing as you know, karma and past lives, like this is the growth you're meant to move through to advance as a form of life. So, what I'm inviting you to do in this episode is choose to work on a coping mechanism that is currently kind of embedded in your life. And by that, I mean just to be able to see around it, like separate it from your person and see it as like a separate thing that is not you. And it's not necessarily to solve the coping mechanism because that'll be different depending on what the thing is in your life. But I think this is like the first step. Awareness and seeing something as optional and separate and changeable is really, in some ways, the hardest part. It's like swallowing a big pill. It's kind of scary, you know? I think a lot of people keep themselves small or keep themselves occupied in things like relationships or busy work or career or just checking boxes. And that's often a coping mechanism behind um, trying to just stave off feelings of low self-worth or loneliness or hollowness or excruciating sensitivity. And all of these are these kind of original wounds. And we don't go there. We don't touch it. We don't even want to look at it often because it feels so big. It's like as soon as our brain starts to go there to explore it, we're like, no, 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 I'm not going there. And it feels so exaggerated because it is the emotion, like it's a pause button that got hit by a kid in us who is frozen in time, who is saying, nope, I refuse to get over this ever. And that is just my like definition of trauma. I refuse to ever get over this because it means this much to me. And so in order to like dig it out, we have to kind of really see that that thing is not true. It's not us. It's something that we held tight to out of fear or powerlessness. So, if you have a loop in your life, you might think that it is you, this coping mechanism, whatever it is, you might have accepted it as just a part of who you are. And that is just because you're still blinded by it. So, in order to change, we have to step back and just start to work on it in very specific ways. And I'm hoping I can initiate that in you in this episode. So, know that whatever you allow into the inner sanctum, like that nerve that is, the close, intimate relationship we have with ourselves. That's when we get activated in some shape or form. And so, whenever we get activated by something external, we'll deal with it by any means possible. It's usually like an old primitive method. Oftentimes, it's like anger, creating distance, doing something to reset the entire loop. And so, what we want to do eventually is slow that process down. Like we might still have that activation that's hitting that nerve, but we can now intervene and slow down that chain reaction enough to alter our response and choose something that is not against our own best interests or not hurtful to other people or not damaging to our bodies. Fill in the blank, whatever that thing is. I recently had an epiphany. It's one of those late night epiphanies that I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I never thought about it that way. So you know how like songwriters, like musicians, artists, musical artists are really the result of many, many types of um, trainings that have tuned their abilities in order to manifest in the world the result of what is in their mind. And so you have to have like, the ability to play the instrument. You have to have the ability to write the music. You have to have the ability to layer that track. All of these ingredients allow you to create this song in the world. And it is all of your life's practicing and learning of lessons of instruments themselves that allow you to materialize that song. And everybody in the world is the same way. We are all the same, whether or not it's music, but I just mean in our life experience. What we allow in based on our boundaries and what we how we guide ourselves and how the steps we take and how we are capable of honoring our own best interests and even being able to hear what they are. All of this is what tunes us. You know, we're all Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney wrote and played every instrument on his Ram On album, my favorite, with his wife Linda at home with their baby. It's like the best, most amazing album in the world. And like, we are all that. We are all these Paul McCartneys in our life. We are instruments that are destined to allow our song to come forth. And that song is a life lived with autonomy, purpose, and being able to be guided by our own best interests and to be able to tune yourself, work on yourself, bravely face things about yourselves means we have to just become more autonomous. We have to become more fully powerful. And then we become like a full channel of love and light that is open completely. It just flows out of us. So if you are not living in this way, I just want to say it's more accessible than you think it is. I didn't used to live that way, but my old therapist kind of like cleaned that spigot, so to speak. She first of all, though, gave me the permission to live a life for myself, to focus on, invest in, and build my own happiness and guard that happiness, and to even hope for that, and to quote, be selfish enough to feel I should have that. And that was really counter to my instincts at the time, you know, to guide a life based off of that. Like prior to that, my energy was more, oh, I'll just squeeze myself into this corner. Don't worry. No, I don't need a chair. Or you like me? Really? I am so lucky to have someone like me. I can't believe they like me. Can you believe they like me? I'll do everything so that they feel like they made a good decision. And to take that identity and slowly grow it into a place of, excuse me, can I have a chair, please? It takes a lot of work. And so what does all that have to do with coping mechanisms? What I'm trying to say is change is possible for you. And it starts by tuning the instrument that is your life's cello. And we have to divine a way through our particular life story via just grabbing tools from people along our path and just trying them on and practicing them as if they are our own. So everything in life is a course correction. Nothing should be just instantly solved. And know that when we do practice a new way of being, it becomes a part of us. And I think, you know, a lot of people just live in a fear-based inclination that we like it that way. You know, we think that we are just broken, or we think that we prefer life a certain way. And oftentimes it's really just an old coping mechanism that we stopped being able to see. You know, I'm talking about like subtle things like feeling tired and unmotivated to move toward a life that makes you happier. Like you might think, oh, I just must not care. Or if we keep ourselves small as a means to avoid pain, like, I don't know, that sounds really stressful. These are all common. They're also often unconscious. And a lot of them are born of childhood moments of fear. This is an example from my own life. It's kind of an oversimplification of this time in my life, but it's one coping mechanism that helped me survive and eventually didn't work so well. When I was a kid, I had to swallow a lot of pain and longing for love. And to do that, I took on an identity of a saver. By that, I mean like a grown-up cheerleader, basically. I basically became entirely focused on other family members and making their lives better. Like I was like Secret Santa mixed with a mom. And it made me feel amazing. It really made me feel empowered in the face of pain. And that was because I could channel my energy and have an effect. And when I grew up, that identity did not work well for me because as an adult, it really meant that I was trained on the feelings of others as a means to make the world better and my life better. And it also meant I was really cut off from my own pain. Therefore, I was unaware of warning bells that may have been quietly going off. And my source of happiness was always outside of myself, which is very dangerous with anything because your measure of happiness doesn't come from within. Therefore, it is always reliant on something external that you cannot possibly predict, know, or control. So as an adult, this repeatedly got me into trouble, as in codependent, unhealthy dynamics with partners or staring at a number on the scale as a measure of my own worth or fill in the blank. So I was seeing the results of that coping mechanism and I was like, why is everything sucking so bad? And then I went to therapy and I was like, all right, I got like an hour. Let's solve this thing. And my therapist was like, oh, no, 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 that's not how it works. You got to be here for a while. And I was like, oh, you're after my money. I can see that. Okay, maybe I'll give it a month. But that was just fear. It was my internal fear of, and also just like nobody wants to work on anything. Nobody wants to rehash old memories. It's A, excruciating, B, tedious, C, oftentimes super boring and unpredictable. So you can't like tell where the thing is. You don't know what you're supposed to be going for. You might not even know where to access it. All of the main reasons that people don't want to do therapy. But I didn't even know at the time that these were symptoms of just old, really painful memories. Like I was just like, no, no, no. I just want to fix this thing. I want to fix this relationship loop. I didn't know that it was really deep down rooted in a belief about myself. So that in a nutshell is what I'm talking about here. Another name for this episode was control release meditation. In that I'm like, it is kind of like we're just stepping back from control, like our need to control things about our lives. And it's really a process of willfully letting go. So before I go into this episode, I wanted to invite you to just glance over your life and see any curves or trends in your life that maybe are not in alignment for you in terms of what your actual goals are. So with that long, long, long intro, there are 3 parts to this episode: the what, the why, and the how, the tools. Part 1, the what. Rebuilding and recreating that inner sense of safety that often gets taken away from us during childhood. And what we want to create is inner safety no matter what other people are doing or not doing and what we have or don't have. So it's really curating that core balance, like that center of gravity. And as I said, it's a process of unpeeling things. It's a process of falling backwards and learning how to accept real time, what is, and process it real time. So it's kind of like coming back home to yourself. It's a cool process in that it's organic and it feels very peaceful and we can't force it. It's just like an allowing kind of process. We all want to feel like we have a sense of control over pain that we might feel inside or we might face in our life. And usually that feeling is loneliness or emptiness, powerlessness, or loss. And usually to deal with that, we go for the easiest and most accessible, fastest tool. And usually that's the one that we used at the earliest age. So it's whatever our oldest coping mechanism is. And that might be anger, might be blowing up at someone who comes too close to you or asks too much of you emotionally. It might be filling a void with stimuli, anything that will do the trick, whether it's a substance or a person or food. And whatever that mechanism is, whatever that loop is, it feels like it's out of our control and it feels confusing because we probably have tried a million times to stop it. And therefore, what we often do is redefine it as, oh, this is who I am and this is what I want. And so part of us will just identify with it and then we'll feel really increasingly ashamed about that. And so it's like it kind of gets glued on. That's like the putty that sticks it to our being is like, oh, I didn't realize, oh, I'm just a shitty person. I just yelled at this person I love. Oh, it's because I'm a shitty person. So it's like over the years, it's just like kind of like the, stuccoed to your being. It's you stop noticing it as not part of you. Part two, the why. Well, when we have old coping mechanisms as a child, we use them to survive and they work. They are useful. They allow us to weather the pain. They allow us to not break our brains. We have to have like a source of control, especially if we are children, because we are powerless and we are legit terrified. So you could break your brain if you don't have a coping mechanism. So they were helpful at some point in time. But as adults, they don't really help. And oftentimes we can't see the effects. Like we see them as, that's a thing that keeps happening. I don't know why. I've tried to stop it. I don't understand. So we keep looking for like, maybe that person will be different, or maybe this thing will be different. So in the, therapy world, we call it a maladaptive coping mechanism. We don't know how to tackle them often, and therefore we are somewhat terrified of even looking. And in a lot of cases, because they were the only thing that has worked for us to soothe pain, we are terrified of letting them go. Even if you hate that thing, like absolutely hate it and want it to be over so badly, there will be such resistance to entertaining the idea of stopping that thing, which that little oxymoron is like, I think the crux of the problem. Like that little seed is it's the mind fuck that you've got to jump over. And it's like, I'm like, just focus on overcoming that little illusion, because it's an illusion. We think that we want the thing. We think that the thing is the only thing that will ever help us to stay alive. There's like this like need to keep it in our energy. But that is false. It's false. Like the trust in the thing is false. I'm speaking mainly of things like addiction in that case. Some other examples of coping mechanisms would be something like, you know, if you're bored and unfulfilled, you just don't do anything. So you just stay inactive. You feel like you can't stop procrastinating, but you don't know what to do about it. Or, you're staying in relationships all the time, even shitty ones, because you cannot stand being alone, because you're in such an intense pain when you're single. Or, maybe you are anytime you have something really good in your life, you're so anxious that you can't stand it. So you start to try and break it apart and sabotage it instantly because it's the anxiety makes you so uncomfortable. So you need to reset the distance. I mean, these are all like really, really common things for people to do. And why would that even happen? All of these are original wounds. They're all rooted in something. They're all specific to us. And some of them may feel small and trivial, but to us in our experience, they were pivotal. They created a belief about the world and the way it works. One example is like a parent who isolated you and did something to you and not your other siblings, or treated you in a specific way and not your other siblings. That instantly defines in your mind something true about yourself. Like you might in the moment have said, well, fuck that, I don't believe in that. But it's still cemented into your being. It was still true in your life experience. So it's like we really have to gut that all the layers to that experience and see it for what it is. Because it's like we live out all these weird, nuanced identities. A child must create an identity to survive. And especially if a parent creates that identity for them, they have to, as a means to control it, the healthy thing to do is to act it out, to own it, to be the source of that thing. Because to believe that your parent doesn't love you is like accepting I might die. It's like way too much for a kid to do. So another really common one, I already brought it up a little bit, but like people who need to push people away when they become too, quote, needy, or they ask for needs to be met, or they come too close, or they feel too close to them themselves, that immediately can feel like danger, danger. And that underneath that feeling is not, I don't love you, I don't want to be close to you. It's often just feelings of inadequacy. And oftentimes it's really tied to a decision we made a long time ago with ourselves to never, ever be vulnerable again. So it's like your nervous system alarm bells are going off and pushing you to explode. And then the outcome you actually wanted is created. Like the outcome on an energetic level that you wanted is created, which is distance. So it's like that entire loop. It happens on such an unconscious level, and therefore for the person experiencing it feels really baffling to dissect. Even if you are completely in a rational state of mind and like, doing a post-mortem on a relationship, you might be like, that whole thing happened and I still have no fucking clue why. Like you just might be like, oh, what's wrong with me? So if you are aware something in your adult life is hurting you and you can't see a way out of it because you have tried and failed, the solution is not to say, I quit. I quit cold turkey. I've decided it. Like you can't just use willpower. I used to do that a lot as a kid when it came to trying to like quit bulimia. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to try so hard this time. I'm going to really make a promise. I'm going to make the promise in a different way. I'm going to write a letter to myself and make a promise that's so, powerful. It has nothing to do with willpower. We really have to see the mechanism that is causing it and just take apart all the gears. There's like a little bit of like scar tissue over it. And that's the hard part, is like finding where it is. And then what comes out is like just a lot of sadness usually. It's like now that we have the adult context and stability to do that work, it is possible. As a kid, it's a little bit, sometimes it feels like too much, but as an adult, there comes a time when you are ready to look inward. And that is when we do the little dirty digging. And it takes about, I'm going to say, average of 6 months to a year, depending on whatever you've been through. And you got to be diligent and you got to be targeted, but like you can get through to the roots and then really like let it all out and come to understand how this whole loop, all the gears work. This thing leads to this thing, which leads to this thing. Under this one is really all of these beliefs, all of these feelings, all of these experiences, all of these rules I had for myself. So I would think of this as a process of growing out of the mechanism by adding a wealth of new, healthier thinking, support, resources, and just know it cannot be solved from where you are now, but it can be solved and you will be much happier, lighter, just like an unfettered spigot of love and light if you do this work. There's nothing too small or trivial to work on. Like I'm still working on stuff, like my scarcity mindset in my 40s, and it is deliberate and conscious, and it's working. It's still working. Once you know how to do self-work, it becomes a lot more accessible and familiar. It's like you start to understand how you work and you start to understand how your mechanisms work. And you can see when something is occurring in you, you can see how it's a process and it's not you. And that is from that place, it's like you become the expert on your own care. And when you can do that, you can design a life that is wonderful. So with that, here are some tools for you in particular. And first, a brief word from our sponsors. All right, tools. All right, the first tool, don't make it a thing until it's a thing. I think one thing we definitely do when we are in a controlling state of mind, especially when something feels amorphous and scary and we are worried about it and we know it's a big problem, is we stop ourselves from pursuing anything with a question mark, And we immediately say, well, but what if I don't like that part of it? Or what I really don't want to do though is have to break up my schedule. I don't like that it's in this location. And like, what if I run into that person there? What if so-and-so finds out about the thing? I actually don't want to pursue it. Don't make it a thing until it's a thing. You have no idea what that thing will be. And that situation is not even here. It probably won't ever be here. And you are only in this creation of the issue in your mind's eye, you're only choosing to stay the same. That is just fear's voice. Fear's motive is to get you to not change. It's to stay safely miserable in the sameness that is safety and predictability. Don't make it a thing. All right, next tool, frame fuck. This is a journal entry. I've given this tool in the past, but I would say this is a good one for this in particular because it's really what I mean by frame fuck is think about it if you're like a kid that's trying to see boobs in a movie that's on cable, or I guess it would have to be like TiVo. Either way, or let's say a VHS tape. Let's take it full 90s. Let's imagine you are pausing the movie and now you're just doing one little push of that button to fast forward it, to fast forward it, to fast forward it. I want you to do the exact same thing with your own behavior. You're becoming a student of whatever this behavior is, and you're just literally slowing it down from the beginning of the loop to the end of the loop. And mainly the beginning. I want you to become like a clinical student. Look at all the little tiny nuances of what leads up to the situation. Look at what the triggers are. Look at all the signs in your body that you've been triggered. Look at the moment of activation and look at your immediate response. Look at their immediate response if another person is involved. Just become very familiar with all the commonalities of the circumstances of this loop. And just literally write notes about it. Second set of prompts for you in this journal entry. What are the benefits of this cycle? Like what immediately benefits you as soon as this cycle has been activated? And it'll be something really important, For example, relief from anxiety, relief from fear, relief from a feeling of suffocation, relief from pain. Or immediately I'm given a project, an intense project that requires all of my focus and energy. It can give you, work on it. There's got to be like a million benefits to whatever this loop is. And then next prompt, when is this from? This trigger? When is this from? And by that, I mean, like, what could you imagine created this dynamic? And just like free associate on that one. It could be like a million different experiences, but I would just say, like, you probably have a pretty good inclination when this thing could have originated. It's probably multiple experiences, but just write like maybe one really pivotal one. And then next prompt, how was this once a really helpful way to live and survive? So just see the logic behind why you started to do what you're doing. Of course you would. Of course you would. Why would you not have done that? Of course, someone in your position would have done that thing because you had to, because you needed to feel not like you were going to die in that situation or not be just drowning in the suffering of that situation. So all of that entry, now you have a little printed map for the work that you're going to do in therapy. Like how I just signed you up for therapy. This is like the beginning of change. It's just even seeing this is the thing. This is the machine I'm going to take apart now. Okay. Last part of this process, this is for if you feel like you're capable of this. I'm asking a lot with this one. What I want to start to do is ask you to teach yourself out of this process as it occurs. Like we're going to try and intervene in the earliest stages of this process. And the goal is to be able to create agency in the process as it is occurring. Because oftentimes all of it happens without us knowing. It's like when we realize it's happened, it's too late. But there's a tiny window of time at the beginning where we do have a little bit of control, when we can see, uh-oh, I'm heading in this direction. Uh-oh, I'm starting to say fuck it. Uh-oh, I'm starting to feel like I need to run towards something. There are all these little tiny nuanced feelings or emotions that push us toward this thing. And what I want you to ask yourself is how can I create anything new and different in that window of time? What's something I can do to slow down that process in that window of time at the beginning of this loop? So that might mean, quite literally, for me, it meant like I'm running out the front door and I'm calling my therapist or I'm calling a friend. Or it meant I was going to a yoga class or I was doing meditation. I would do everything I could for hours and hours and hours, and it was fucking exhausting. For you, it might mean I'm going to start going to Al Anon meetings, or I'm going to start to go to fill in the blank help group. Or it might mean I'm signing up for therapy for the first time. Whatever it is, we're trying to create some sort of new input that could possibly alter the outcome. And you're not going to be successful every time or the first time, but it will slowly have an effect. It's like we're really just altering the curve, the overall curve in life. You're adding new variables in here. And know that whatever pain you're resistant to feel, whatever is deep under that thing, you were afraid to feel it then, but you are safe to feel it now. And therefore, it's coming up in your life. This episode is coming up in your life right now because it is timely for you. There is a moment at this whatever milestone you're at in your life where you are more ready to address it than you have been before. And for whatever it's worth, you can do a lot of work on yourself with just your journal and yourself. And you can also do a lot of work with a best friend and just in the simple act of processing. And by that, I mean like hearing what comes out of your own head, seeing it in black and white, giving yourself feedback and context around those things, barfing out a lot of tears. Because a lot of this is really just mourning for yourself as a kid and seeing, I'm not such an idiot after all. I'm not such a bad person after all. I really did deserve to be cared for. So the goal with all of these stuck feelings, whatever they are, underlying this process is just to mourn, to see that experience and that response as logical for a kid, but not logical for an adult. It served you then, it doesn't serve you now, but you're not an idiot. All right, next tool, live your way there. They say to live your way into better thinking. You can dress your way into better feeling. You can walk the walk of a person you are not yet. So what is one way you can start to embody a healthier mindset in your physical form in your life before you actually get there? Like, for example, is there specific wardrobe you can wear? Is there an action you can take? Is there a class you can sign up for? Is there a 12-step group you can find to put on your calendar 3 days this week? It's really about actualizing in a physical way some place you will be before the inner work is done. And sometimes that's putting yourself out there, exposing this issue to light in a new way, even though none of you is ready to do that yet. And I say this with a grain of salt because there is such a thing as saying too much before you're ready to say that thing, and that can feel traumatizing. So choose the environment very wisely. Not talking like get drunk with a bunch of coworkers and spill the beans about your childhood traumas. Like it's really about like creating a safe place for this to happen, but like throw that rope up the mountain so you can climb higher than you are today. All right, the next tool to talk is to manifest. I know manifesting has such a weird tinge to it, but like really the way we solve things out is to talk about them with people. And we also can get a lot of input we were not expecting to get from ourselves, just in the process of talking and exposing things to light. I think especially when it comes to a really serious issue. If you have any sphere where you are comfortable discussing it, talk about it. Hear yourself saying it out loud. I remember it was impossible for me to say that I had an eating disorder or drug addiction for that matter to anybody ever. And I tried really hard. I remember like going to a big meeting thing at my school and like raising my hand and like nothing came out. I was like, so I get how hard it is. But if you can get to a therapist's office and just whisper, like get it out once, you'll be closer to healing than you ever have been before. It's fucking terrifying. There's no other way to say it, but it's you got to push yourself to get there a tiny bit at a time, and eventually it just starts to flow. What we're doing is we're pulling out a cork that is wedged in our throats. And that cork, once you pull it, meaning the paused trauma, once you pull it, it comes gurgling out and we are lighter after that. It's like once you have an epiphany in therapy, it's like instantly lighter. It's nuts. It's like metaphysical. It's crazy. All right, next tool is a mantra. Maybe it's not fear. Maybe it's actually love. So if you are experiencing anxiety or fear or worry around something that you don't feel capable of or something that feels overwhelming, like your thoughts might be like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm too scared. Maybe I can't do it. Maybe it'll be a disaster. Maybe it'll be the worst thing ever. Maybe I will fall backwards, whatever it is. Know that that is because you are in a growth zone. I'm just trying to reframe that feeling for you. That is where we want to be, that feeling. It is our body anticipating a leap, and it's readying us for the actions we plan to take. And know that this is where we experience the most dramatic growth and also love and joy. This is when we're going to start to change. So just remember, it's not necessarily fear and worry. It's actually excitement and love. It's coming from something we care deeply about. It's just a reframe of whatever that feeling is. All right, the next tool, keep it simple. These are 3 questions inspired by my friend Lori Burns. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to the Teen Project, which is the charity I've supported it throughout my life that I feel is one of the most amazing charities in the world. And she rescues kids who are aged out of the foster system and also kids who are trafficked and puts them through college. And then they all work to help other kids. It's pretty wonderful. So anyway, this is inspired by her, this tool. 3 questions that you can ask yourself to guide yourself. And I think that one thing that happens to us is if we have loops in our life that we don't align with or understand, we stop trusting ourselves and we think, I don't know if I'm good or bad. I don't know if I'm mean. I don't know if I am smart. I don't know if I'm making the right decision. It's like we become ambivalent about so many things and we trust other people over ourselves. So, questions to ask yourself in the face of that: where is this coming from? Like, am I being on the level with myself? Is this coming from a good place in me? Second question, is it the right thing to do? Like, is it a positive thing to do? Is it what should be done? And last question, do I have the audacity to do it right now? And if so, let go and let God. Just let go and trust. Like, welcome the powerlessness. All right, and the next tool, very related, let go and let God, or let go and let good. This is one of my favorite tools I ever began to practice, which is just simple, a reminder of acceptance, a reminder of the truth that we are powerless. Let go and trust. The belief that you can control any outcome is the belief that needs to be removed. It is what causes us the most pain in our lives, the most unnecessary worry and controlling behaviors that usually act against us. That is the thing we have to teach ourselves to let go of and just remind ourselves, I have no control, and that is a great thing. I accept it is not my job to control the outcome. let go and trust, let go and trust. All right. The next tool, what do you commit to? So I don't want you to think about how. I just want you to think about, like, in the purest sense. This is a journal exercise. What do you want to embody in your life? Like, how do you want to feel? I don't want a list of things you want. I don't want a list of people you want. I just want to know how you want to feel as an individual, just inside of yourself, about yourself, for yourself. And if you can push yourself to really focus on this goal, tune into it, allow yourself to dream big on this, you are allowed to live a happy, fruitful, and balanced life. And I think what happens a lot of the time is we start to focus on external things as goals. So really what I want to challenge you to do, what do you want for yourself? What do you commit to for yourself? Really embody this goal that is just you on you, internally, you on you. Really contribute energy to this. All right. The next tool, active equals healing. This is for when you feel trapped in ambivalence and you are in that moment, know that you are making a decision to be inactive in your issues. You're making a decision to stay the same. And know that as soon as you get to that point, as soon as you are in like oh, I'm procrastinating, or, oh, look, I haven't done anything and I feel so bad about myself. Remember, that is a guise. That's a disguise for I'm choosing to be inactive. The only thing that matters is you're active. And it doesn't even matter if the thing you're doing is like, I don't even know if this thing's going to work. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, just do something. Take a positive action in any direction. And that is how we move through plateaus. That's how we make progress. Because you never know what will be thrown onto your path that will benefit you if you're just active somehow in any shape or form, pulling in new insights from outside of yourself, welcoming in change from any direction. All right. The next tool, I welcome what is. This is another mantra. I welcome what is. The truth exists. The answer exists. And sometimes we just don't want to hear it and we don't want it to be true, but it is true. So what happens as a result of that is, like, in our denial of the thing that's true, we go on a loop of wanting to pretend that it's not true. We're doing everything we can to be like, maybe it's not though, maybe it's not though. And we go in a big circle. Whatever is true, just welcome it forth. Be really in love with it, no matter what it is. And I encourage you to let that answer come out if you want to right now. But as soon as you start to catch yourself dwelling in worry or resisting something, you start to see yourself spinning in your own head, rationalizing things. That is the controlling tendency that's resisting something underneath that's true that we don't want to be true, but it's there already. So it's just like, as soon as you sense that, let it out, say it aloud. What is the thing that I'm afraid to accept? And oftentimes we feel like, if I do accept it, though, it'll mean something bad's going to happen. It'll mean that I have to lose something I want. Whatever the thing is that we're thinking will happen will not actually happen. So just allow the truth to exist. Allow it to come forth, fall in love with it, claim it. All these other self-created issues instantly vanish. It's nuts. So as a meditation, I invite you, practice. I accept the truth, whatever it is, I allow the truth to come forth. And if that feels dangerous in the moment when you're doing it, I invite you to practice a feeling, practicing the feeling of safety in your body. Like, we can teach our body to feel safe just by regulating it, breathing slower, but also in like the way we clench our muscles. We relax our shoulders, relax your belly. Just in the moment you're welcoming what you want to accept, just practice feeling safe in your own body. All right. Next tool, dialogue with you, the friend. So as I mentioned before, we can make a lot of progress working on things, processing things, just us on us. So with issues that you might be experiencing in your life or issues with other people, having a convo with you on you so much new information can come from this other person that is you. Have a dialogue with yourself in your journal. These are some prompts I wanted to offer up for these kinds of conversations. First question, what do you think the problem is? Second question, look at the surrounding issues. Are there other factors to consider? Are there other factors that are contributing to this? Next question, what is the issue in a nutshell? Next question, what can I do to empower myself? Last question, what do I choose to work on in this area? Something small, something simple. And the very last tool, that's the journal prompt for that. I've had so many cool epiphanies and just like working on stuff in this way that I'm like stuck in on a personal level. As soon as you're writing it out, you'll be like, oh, probably is just this other thing. Last tool, what are my priorities? Or slice the cake sideways. I just wanted to call out, I think we get really rigid when we are trying to control things and when we are resistant to letting go or releasing control. It's like we make up so many black and white rules, especially for ourselves. And they keep us stuck. They keep us safely inactive. So slicing the cake sideways, I just mean like it doesn't have to come about in the way that everybody else says it does. Like whatever your life will look like will be specific to you, and the solution to your issues will be specific to you. All of it is okay. All of it is valid. Whatever your particular life design looks like is yours to create. It can be something that nobody else has thought of before, that you have never seen before. So don't stop yourself along the path to healing. Anything you need it to be, it will be. So all that matters is you just stay active on this path of welcoming newness, change, new information, new support, and exposing this thing to light. And also allowing yourself to process and look inward. It's like being able to support yourself as an adult in the feelings of a child. It's like these things now unite and we forgive ourselves for so much. We start to have context and we're like, oh, of course I'm not a bad person. Of course I'm a great person. And of course I would do all of these things based on that life experience. So I hope these tools are helpful. And I wanted to thank my very latest sponsors. I appreciate you all so much. If you have the means, donations really help out this show. If you don't have the means, totally understand. If you liked this episode in particular, I would ask if you have the means to donate to the Teen Project. My friend Lori Burns is saving so many lives of foster kids, and she is the inspiration yet again for this episode. I put a link in the show notes. Past that, if you could share this with anyone you think it could help, that helps me as well. In closing, what was a strength, when it becomes exaggerated, it becomes a weakness. And know that it will not be removed from your person. It's not about changing who you are and what's great about you. It's just about taming what is currently overactive or overcompensating or creating imbalance in your life. And it's taking valuable joy away from your life story. And know that if you are judging yourself, that is because you are seeing yourself from a child's perspective. That is childlike energy. Healing shows up as openness and love. And fear and judgment shows up from a lack of evolution. It's whenever it's in yourself, whenever it's in others. If others judge you, that is just a lack of evolution. It's childlike perspectives. So I invite you to evolve into areas you currently judge yourself for, and know that this is what you are in this life to overcome. It is in your reach. It is what you are here for. And I believe you can do it. And I send you so much love. Continue to walk the path of self-forgiveness, take actions in service of self-love, and smile.